Potential new setback for the president's health care law. This after the White House announced it would delay implementation of the employer mandate. That's a key component of the law that requires that small companies provide health insurance for their employees. Senate Republicans are now urging the president in a letter to permanently delay implementation of Obamacare for all Americans. One of the lead authors of that letter, Senator John Thune, he joins us live from Capitol Hill. It's pretty rare even that you can get all Republicans on board for anything, but everybody signed on to this letter. What are you asking the president to do?
They sure did, John, and the reason is we think that, of course, all of us who are in the Senate that were here when Obamacare was voted on voted against it, and our new members who have come since then all agree that the best thing that we could do is to delay permanently this legislation and actually start over and go about doing this right. So essentially what we did is we wrote a letter to the president after they announced they were going to delay the employer mandate, which is great for businesses, and said, what about everybody else? What about the 6 million Americans that are going to be hit with the individual mandate tax? What about all the other Americans who are going to lose the coverage that they have or see their premiums go up, which is happening? What are you going to do about those folks? And so essentially our message to the president is, look, we understand why you won't want to delay the employer mandate. It was hurting a lot of employers out there, forcing people into part-time jobs instead of full-time jobs. But we think that you ought to extend that relief to all Americans who are going to be harmed by this legislation.
The president said that the individual mandate is not a tax increase. Your letter says that it's going to increase the taxes on an average American by $1,200.
That's right, and when it's fully implemented, that's going to be the impact. You're going to have a lot of people in this country who are going to be hit by this, and in addition to all the other taxes that were included in the bill that are being passed on in the form of higher premiums, this is a disaster for Americans, and not just employers who are affected by the employer mandate, but middle-class Americans affected by the individual mandate, middle-class Americans who are affected by the higher taxes and by the higher premiums that are in this bill, and that's why I think the public is so negative about it. And what we're simply doing is responding to what we hear from Americans and saying to the president, you know what, let's delay this, and better yet, let's delay it permanently. Let's start over and go about this the right way. There are issues and problems that we have in our healthcare system today. Those can be fixed without having to pass a 2,700-page bill, a massive 20,000 pages of regulations to try and implement it.
What about the constitutionality question? I know you didn't vote for it. Your party, by and large, didn't like it, but it is the law of the land. For the president to now come out and say, well, there are parts of this law passed by Congress that he doesn't want to start enforcing yet. What do you think about that?
Well, I have issues with that because it is the law, and he's basically saying, I'm going to nullify part of the law that I signed. And yet there are still Democrats up here on Capitol Hill are still out there with giving a full-throated endorsement to this. But I think that's problematic, and I think most people see through that. Now, what he's saying is we're just going to waive the penalty. We're not going to apply the penalty. Businesses are still going to be required to offer these government-approved plans, but we're not going to fine them for not doing that. But it undermines, it's a key component of this legislation, and I think what the administration is acknowledging is that this is a train wreck, as has been described by some of the Democrats here on Capitol Hill when it comes to implementation. And we think that it's not working out as advertised for them, and they want to take a step back, at least on the employer mandate. We're saying let's take a step back on everything.
I know the letter just went out yesterday. Please come back and share with us any response you get from the White House.
All right, sure will. Thanks, John.
Senator John Thune, thank you.
Well, major